Audience analysis, knowing your end user. It's important to know that good technical writing, good technical documentation has to focus on its audience's needs. An audience is a group of people with similar needs and similar levels of technical and subject matter expertise and who will be using the document. So if you have a software configuration management plan that has many audiences, regulatory auditors, project teams, IT support, developers. Once you're asked to write a document, you need to think about who will use this document, how will each audience use this document, and what information does each audience need in this document for them to use it. Generally speaking, this is the most important consideration for authors of technical documentation. Technical documentation is a selfless act. In other words, like a lot of writing, if I think of fiction or opinion pieces in the newspaper, there is a level of selfishness or a level of egoism relative to the writer. Technical documentation is not like that. It is about the audience. It is about the purpose of your documentation. And that purpose is to ensure that your writing meets the needs, interests, and background of your readers. Poor audience analysis will result in poor technical documentation. So there are many types of audiences. I've broken them down to 4 here, and obviously a person could differentiate under other criteria. But first you have experts. These are people who understand the process or perhaps the product inside and out. Then there are technicians. Generally speaking, these are people that work with the process or the product on a daily basis, have a good understanding of it, but are not at the level of expertise of the experts. Executives are people who make decisions. They may or may not have a lot of information or a lot of understanding of what the process or the product is. However, they are people who need to be thought of relative to decision making, and therefore they're a very important audience. Finally, there are generalists. Their needs are often very specific relative to technical documentation, and it's very important that the technical documentation that generalists use is simple, clear, and easy to find. So some criteria for audience analysis: obviously knowledge and training. What do people know? Are they experts? Do they have prior schooling or a lot of experience with the product? Generally speaking, each audience determines exactly how they will use your document. Project team uses the requirements, the documents, to tell them what the system should do. In addition, a requirements document serves as a linchpin for other documents, such as design document, testing documentation, configuration management documentation. So what do they want? What do they need? Demographics are another thing that's important to think about relative to audience analysis. Are you writing to people from a different culture? What age are you writing to people? What part of the country is your audience from? And the last thing you want to think about as far as audience analysis criteria is, are you writing for multiple audiences? So if you are writing for multiple audiences, the document must provide sufficient information for the audience to use it. So you have to determine what knowledge each audience has and what additional information each audience needs in the document. So basically, technical documentation is about getting your message across. So you want to make certain all key information is present, that you have not omitted anything. Be sure you have the right information for the right audience. Omit any extraneous information. Sentences should be clear, they should be direct, and they should be simple as possible, always keeping the audience in mind. You should write strong introductions and organize effectively. Effectively organized documentation makes it easier for the end user to understand it and to utilize it. You should use graphics for variety and to also improve instruction. And always you should break up information into intuitive chunks. Chunking information is a very important part of technical documentation, and it is also a very good way to make sure that your audience receives the message that you want them to receive. Some final thoughts relative to audience analysis. You want to understand the level of expertise and interest of your audience. What are they using it for? How much effort are they going to put into utilizing that information? You want to write clearly. You want to organize effectively. And the last thing to remember, the devil is in the details. Small issues add up quickly. So you need to make certain that your audience understands exactly what you want them to understand and that they can readily use that information to be effective in the workplace.